Hey everybody, Matt here for Imagine Then Make. Thanks for stopping by. In today's video, we're going to be working with plain old ordinary corrugated cardboard right out of the recycle bin. Specifically, we're going to look at layering it to make it thicker as well as stronger. Alright, before we get into the meat of this video, I thought I'd give you a little bit more information about the kind of cardboard I'm actually using. Ordinary corrugated cardboard without packing tape, no address labels stuck to it, and also no full box labels, for the very fine print. So we're just going to be using the ordinary corrugated cardboard. So what I did was I took the rest of this cardboard box and cut up some squares. They're all about the same size. Not perfect, but you can see I got a pretty good stack here, and I also have some smaller kind of oddball sizes from the same box. So this is the kind of cardboard we're going to be using for our little experiment today. Corrugated cardboard can be kind of weak. It can bend very easily along the corrugations. And the reason for that is that when you pull the very top thin layer of paper off of the cardboard, you can see that there are these channels. Let me come around and give you a closer view. So these are the channels that I'm talking about. And it's right along this channel where the cardboard is very easily bent. Which is fine if your project needs a nice crisp bend like that. But if you don't want it to bend, well, first off, it doesn't bend too easily in this direction. In other words, sort of against the grain, or at 90 degrees to the corrugations in the cardboard. But what if you wanted your project to be fairly stiff and not bend no matter which direction the cardboard was folded or stressed, put under a load? So that's the kind of question we're going to investigate in this video. So we're going to use this and maybe one other sort of untreated sheet as our control. This is what ordinary cardboard, one layer thick, this is how it behaves. Now if we take two of these like so, and the corrugations are running parallel, and we glue these together, we're going to get a much stiffer, compared to this, and also thicker layer of corrugated cardboard. So one easy thing to do if you needed something a little bit stiffer, although I think you can still see that this flexes, is that you can just double up your cardboard. There's a bunch of different ways you could glue them together. For this video, I'm going to try some of this Super 77 spray adhesive only because it moves very, very quickly. It kind of dries very quickly. In the past, I've also used traditional wood glue. This is Type Bond Original. And if I use wood glue, I tend to dilute it with some water, and just to make it a little bit thinner. But then you have to be careful, because if it's too runny, too much water, you're really going to make the cardboard quite soft. Cardboard doesn't like water. It'll get very soggy. You've probably noticed that in the past. And then it loses all of its strength once it gets too wet. So for this video, I'm going to stick with the spray adhesive. So the next thing I'm going to do here is just glue these two pieces together. So we have two pieces that are not glued together, say any of these. And then we're going to glue these two pieces with the corrugations running in the same direction, so they're parallel to each other. And we're going to try and get an idea of how relatively stiff this is compared to this compared to just an ordinary single sheet. So here you can see me gluing the first two sheets together. Notice that I'm spraying the adhesive outside. If you have to spray this stuff inside, make sure you're in a very well ventilated room and you're wearing a respirator. I always prefer to spray this kind of stuff outside. So I glued the first two pairs of sheets, one with the corrugations running parallel to each other, and the next pair where the corrugations are perpendicular to each other. I've drawn pencil lines here on the cardboard so you can tell which way the corrugations are going. So as you can see, I'm gluing the 3-layer sample up now. On to 4 layers. After I spray the adhesive, I give it maybe a minute to get a little bit more tacky, and then I press the layers together. Again, the reason why I wanted to use the spray adhesive is because I'm able to put these layered bundles together very, very quickly. If I used regular wood glue, it would take a lot longer for it to dry. So in the interest of time, I just used the spray adhesive. So here's the last set, 5 layers thick. You can see I'm not really lining up the edges or anything real critically. I'm just kind of sandwiching the layers together, marking which way the corrugations go, just so you can keep track of it along with me. And there you go. So now the big question is, how much stronger are these layered pieces? So it's going to be a little tricky to kind of judge the relative stiffness between each of our sample pieces, but we'll just kind of give it a go here. This is the single layer. There's no glue or any special treatment on the cardboard, and you can see it bends pretty easily right around the corrugations. I could still bend it across the corrugations. Takes a little bit more effort, but it's still pretty easy to do by hand. Moving on to 2 layers, corrugations running in the same direction. The edges are just taped together. There's no glue in the middle. I'm still able to bend it along the corrugations, although it was a little bit more difficult than this, not a lot. And then bending it across the corrugations, I'm still able to do it. So maybe a little bit of improvement here over the single sheet, but not a real lot. Here's the second sample, 2 layers, corrugations running in the same direction, glued in between. So I can still bend it along the corrugations, and I can still bend it across the corrugations. You can see it took a little bit more effort, but still easy enough to do by hand. The next one, 2 layers glued in between, corrugations running perpendicular to each other. A little bit stiffer, but still easy enough to bend by hand. Okay. Moving on, 3 layers, corrugations on the outside running the same direction. The middle layer, the corrugations are running perpendicular. So if I try and bend it along the corrugation on the top and the bottom, so in other words, it's just bending against the middle layer. It's a little stiffer, as you might expect, but I'm still able to do it by hand. Now if I try and bend it this way, I'm going to be bending across the corrugation on the front and on the back, and with the corrugations in the middle, so it should be a little tougher. I would say it was a little tougher, but still easy enough to do by hand. 4 layers, corrugations running this way on the top layer, perpendicular on the bottom layer, so the middle two layers it switches back and forth, everything glued. So if I try and bend it along this corrugation line, which is against this corrugation, I can still do it by hand, but it's getting pretty tough. Now if I try and bend it this way, I'm going across the corrugations here with the corrugations on the other side, and then so it's pretty stiff. I did get it to bend, but you could see it. I hope you could see it. It took some extra effort. Now we're up to 5 layers. Corrugations running in the same direction on the front and the back, and the middle 3 layers, you know, just like before, they switch. Everything's glued. So trying to bend this along this corrugation by hand, it's really tough. So at 5 layers, it's pretty difficult. So now I'm gonna, let's see, what can I do? I'm going to grab a block of wood to try and bend this against. So let me stack these up, get these out of the way. Alright, so here's my wood blocks. I made these quite a long time ago. There's a video about it. And to tell you the truth, I still use these quite often. So I'm going to try and bend this. And I was able to bend it, but it does, you can see it really followed the corrugations there. But it took some effort. Flipping it over, woo! I hope I'm sure you heard that cracking sound. So it did actually bend and actually break the top paper layer on the cardboard, but it did take some effort. Now if I try and go the other way, I was able to bend it, but it took a lot of effort. And I bent it along this corner. Let's see if this side will pop. It ripped. Not quite as dramatic as the other side, but it finally did rip. So this was the piece that was about a half an inch thick. Yeah, about a half an inch thick. So I would say, obviously this one was the stiffest out of all the pieces that we looked at. And I would say this was pretty strong. If I wanted to make this even stronger, I'd just keep adding layers. So let's say you were building a project and you have 5 layers of cardboard all glued together, and now you want to start squaring up your pieces so that you can build your project. Well, I just took a combination square just to draw a straight line. I could line this up again right on the line, or actually you've seen me do this before on one of my more recent builds. Take the ruler out of the combination square, put it on the line, use a utility knife, kind of score the line. Want to go over it many times so that you're actually cutting the cardboard rather than tearing it. Once the score is in place, take the ruler away. And after a or two. You'll get through the cardboard, and it's a little bit of a jagged cut, but not too bad. If I took some sandpaper, this is 220, and I sanded it ever so gently, because remember, cardboard is basically wood pulp that's been pressed into a man-made product. So now you have a much smoother edge, and you can keep sanding it to make it maybe a little bit more square. Kind of like woodworking, only with cardboard. So again, this is 220 grit sandpaper, nothing special. And there you go, there's a reasonably clean cut. The point of this video, I hope you got the point of the video, is that you can use free materials, free corrugated cardboard right out of the recycle bin. If you layer your pieces and glue them together, lay them so the corrugations are perpendicular to each other with each successive layer, you can get fairly thick. This was 5 layers at about 1/2 inch. You could keep going to get to 3/4 or maybe even 1 inch. And then you can use a utility knife guided by the metal ruler of a combination square to create a kerf. You can cut all the way through the utility knife, or maybe you can finish the cut with a fine tooth saw. This happened to be a pull saw, but there's lots of other choices, including just a basic hacksaw. And that will allow you to cut your pieces into the shape and size that you need to build your project, whatever that might be. So hopefully this was helpful and perhaps even inspire you to try making your next project, or maybe a prototype of your next project, out of corrugated cardboard right out of the recycle bin.